Let's bring in Troy Bramston. He's, of course, a senior writer and columnist at The Australian. Troy, 4 days to go. What's your sense of things? Where are we at in campaign 2022?
Yeah, Kieran, well, I think it's probably too close to call. I think it is going to come down to 20 marginal seats all around the country. He talks to politicians, party strategists, major parties, and they think some of them are going to come down to a coin toss. They'll be decided by preferences, which are hard to predict where they're going to go. But overall, there is a sense that momentum is shifting away from the government and towards Labor. I'm not going to make a hard and fast prediction. I do think there are still some doubts about Labor and about Anthony Albanese, even though I think most Australians probably want to see a new Prime Minister and a new government. But this election is hard to predict, and it's going to go right down to the wire until the last votes are cast.
And when you look at the impact of the Teal independents, have you got any sense of how viable those races will end up being? I know that there are independents running in other seats like Nichols in regional Victoria, which is a real chance of falling to an independent as well, one in Curtin in WA. It's not just the high-profile ones that we've been talking about at length. There are a few others around with very credible chances at the election.
Yeah, that's right, Kieran, and that reflects, I think, a mood that is there in the community against the government and against the Prime Minister. You know, I mentioned in my column in The Australian today, Kieran, that when I spoke to senior Liberals and members of Parliament and ministers, they said to me that the most common thing they were hearing on polling booths, pre-poll booths, was opposition to Scott Morrison. People wanted to see a new Prime Minister. They've had enough of him. There is a mood against him. It is strong. It is out there. It's being felt by Liberals. And yes, that sort of Teal independent, but other independents in rural and regional areas are posing a very big challenge to the coalition. And the thing is, for someone like Josh Frydenberg in the Melbourne seat of Kooyong, you know, if his primary vote dips just below 45%, he could lose to an independent like Monique Ryan. He may only have 25 or 30% of the vote. Now, there's going to be a lot of questions, I think, asked on the other side of this election, Kieran, if a number of these moderate Liberal seats fall to independents, and people will be asking how fair is it that someone can get 45% of the vote and still lose an election to someone who may only have 25 or 30% of the vote. So the question about our voting system, I think, will be up for discussion if the Teal independents do win these seats.
The point that you make about it coming down to a close race in a number of seats, the scenario, though, if the government were to lose power and they lost Josh Frydenberg, that'd be an unmitigated disaster for the Liberal Party.
Well, that's right. I think he's odds on to be the next Liberal Party leader whenever Scott Morrison vacates. He would like to take the job in opposition if the government is defeated. If not, the numbers will probably fall to Peter Dutton's way. Peter Dutton wants to be leader of the Liberal Party. He said that to me late last year when I interviewed him. Josh Frydenberg wants to be leader too. And the thing is that if not only he loses his seat, but a number of these other moderate independents, whether it's Trent Zimmerman in North Sydney or Tim Wilson in Goldstein or Dave Sharma in Wentworth, that'll see the Liberal Party tilt and shift more towards the right. So that could, in fact, favour Peter Dutton, who is from the Conservative wing of the Liberal Party, to be the next party leader.
Yeah, I think for their future, you need both of them in the party room, even if in opposition, surely, Troy, where the polls suggest if they're correct in 2022, that's where they'll be. And Anthony Albanese will be the Prime Minister. That would counter the orthodoxy, wouldn't it, of Labor needing a big character and a big reform plan to win from opposition if that were to eventuate on Saturday night.
That's right. Anthony Albanese is seeking to defy history here. I mean, he is not seen as a particularly dynamic or exciting leader. He's got pretty average approval in the opinion polls, and Labor is taking a pretty risk-averse agenda. It's a small target agenda. He doesn't like that terminology. He prefers to say a smart agenda or a safe agenda. he doesn't want to present as a big target to the electorate like Bill Shorten was 3 years ago. But Labor has never won from opposition in this way before, whether it's the visionary and inspiring Gough Whitlam, who attracted big crowds wherever he went in 1972 with his sweeping reform program, or the charismatic Gough Whitlam in 1983, Bob Hawke in 1983, or even Kevin Rudd in 2007. These were larger-than-life Labor leaders, and they all had big plans and big ambitions. Labor is following a very different strategy at this election, but if Anthony Albanese wins, then of course it'll be a strategy that will be vindicated.
Troy, appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you next week when the dust has settled, my friend.